Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Over the last few weeks, it feels like we're all getting past the pains of lockdown and now beginning to think differently about how we can leverage technology to work better, more efficiently, retire those archaic processes, and settle for life in this digital age. Now, I recently came across a company called ASML, and they're using the application of augmented reality to maintain business continuity. And business continuity seems to be a huge topic right now. And also using it for customer support during the COVID-19 pandemic. But they're going to continue with those changes that they implemented moving forward. But when I looked a little closer, this wasn't a young company leveraging augmented reality. I learned that ASML has actually been around for more than 35 years. And what struck me straight away was that companies with that kind of longevity are not always thought of as fast-moving, quick-thinking and big problem solvers. But as with everyone, ASML faced some major issues serving their customers during the coronavirus, when everybody was isolated. So I felt that there was a great story here, and a story that will resonate for businesses all over the world. And hopefully, I think you'll enjoy it too. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to the Netherlands so we can speak with Peter Poosens from ASML and get him on the podcast right now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, my name is Peter Poosens. I work in Veldhoven in the Netherlands as a department head within customer support at ASML. I've been working for ASML for 15 years now. I've been active in many different sectors of the company. I started in IT, I moved to manufacturing, supply chain management, and I now work in customer support. ASML is probably a company many listeners have never heard of. We actually internally often refer to it as the most important tech company that you've never heard of, because ASML is a critical supplier in the semiconductor industry. The lithography systems that ASML makes, they create billions of tiny structures on thin slices of silicon, which is actually the most difficult step in the production process of computer chips. In my function, I used to travel around the world pretty often, but due to the pandemic, that's of course not possible. So I am also currently enjoying more time at home with my wife and my two daughters, which actually works out pretty fine, thanks to today's technological possibilities, which are partly made possible again by ASML.
Excellent. And like you said, although a lot of people listening may not have heard of ASML, if they were to look at their smartphone, their computer, or almost every device that they take for granted, you guys play a big part in that, don't you?
Exactly. So for 30 years now, ASML has been that critical machine in the production process of computer chips, and especially in the most high-end computer chips. So in the latest Android, iOS devices, or AR or VR equipment, those chips would not have been possible without the equipment of ASML.
And I think also for everyone listening, everyone's been going around their business thinking every day would be the same and got everything sorted with their business and their lives. And then obviously over the last 4 months, everything has completely changed. And I think as a global community, we've all faced the exact same challenges. But what I'm interested in is how businesses such as ASML have actually used technology to overcome those challenges. So can you tell me a little bit more about how you're using technology, specifically the application of augmented reality, to not only maintain business continuity, but also customer support during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes. So the biggest challenge for ASML actually started with the travel ban. That started a few months ago, and it hit ASML pretty hard. So the installations and the maintenance of our machines are very complex. To give you a view of the complexity of our machines, our latest generations EUV, extreme ultraviolet systems, they are extremely complex. They contain more than 100,000 parts, 3,000 cables, 40,000 bolts, 2 kilometers of hosing, and it's the size of a city bus and ships in 40 freight containers and 3 cargo planes. So you can imagine that not everyone in the world is capable of installing and servicing these machines. And so what we typically do as ASML, we send some of our best engineers around the world to support the installations of these machines. Also because in many cases, the machines are not fully, the development phase has not fully completed yet, but our customers already want to use our machines for the qualification of their computer chips. So these engineers could not fly anymore, and that really put a high risk in the installation of our systems. And the installation of an ASML system, it's often a critical step in building a multi-billion semiconductor fab somewhere around the world. So we needed to overcome that travel ban. So what we did, we leveraged a lot of ideas that were already part of our company. So there's a tremendous amount of smart, motivated people in ASML, and they were already trying some things out with virtual reality and augmented reality in the company for internal purposes. And actually, we wanted to use it also in a customer setting, but it was never really possible because of the fact that there is a lot of IP protection, of course, in our industry. But thanks to the pandemic situation, it was possible to get all that energy on the augmented reality field and really pilot it in the field, and by that we could support an engineer in the fab. So an engineer still needs to be someone with good hands-on skills and basic knowledge of the machines, but that very specific knowledge, where typically we send people from Veldhoven or from the US to Asia to help out, that could now be done remotely using the augmented reality glasses. So the field engineer wears, in our case, a Microsoft HoloLens 2, and at the same time he is connected with remote experts in Veldhoven, in Wilton, in San Diego, and support him in the installation or maintenance action that has to be carried out.
Love that. So essentially you use the Microsoft HoloLens and a smartphone to simulate an on-site visit. How successful was that?
That was actually very, very successful. So, of course, in the beginning, we were also very anxious to see whether or not it would really work, because typically there's a nice theory, but does it work in practice? And the first reactions of both the field engineer and the remote experts when we did the first tryout in the US was very, very positive. Of course, there were some you need to adapt your head movements a little bit and the way you communicate. But after that initial period of getting used to the technology, we were amazed how well it worked. We had certain service actions with connecting a very complex cable set, which now typically someone had to fly over. And in this particular case, that person from Veldhoven, he could just point with the mouse and made an annotation on specific parts of that cable slab. So the engineer at the remote side, at the field side, he could actually connect the cables in the right place and really made sure we didn't make any mistake in the installation of the machine. And it's actually so successful right now that we have more than 60 service sites around the world, and actually every site now wants this technology. So the biggest challenge right now is ramping up the capabilities in our company instead of selling the technology.
And what I love about your story is ASML has been around for over 35 years. And for the most part, I think companies with that kind of longevity are not always sort of fast moving, being quick thinking and agile problem solvers. So before COVID, do you have any examples of how you've had to continuously innovate over the years?
Yes, definitely. So I think the cool thing about ASML is that it has been a company where technology has always came first, and that together with the founders mentality. So ASML started as a spin-off of Philips in the 80s in a wooden shed, and part of that DNA is still present, especially when the pressure gets high. And I think everybody in the firm acts as one and collaborates in getting these solutions in place. So one of the examples is in 2008, when there was, of course, a big crisis, and also the demand for ASML machines was hit hard. Many firms at that time, they actually stopped investing in R&D and really said, okay, now we need to hold our horses. But ASML actually turned it around, and they said we're a technological company, and especially the EUV part of our technology, where we wanted to use extreme ultraviolet light to create even tinier structures on silicon. That piece of technology, many people didn't even think it was physically possible to do that. But instead of stopping investments, ASML continue to invest significantly in this technology, and also in a very agile way. And by that, we managed to overcome many of these difficulties, which now, more than 10 years later, ensured that the Moore's law of computer chips is still alive.
And for most businesses, they've had to completely change how they serve their customers throughout the pandemic. And here we are now as lockdowns are being lifted and we're getting back to normal now. But I've got to ask, how did the global pandemic affect you at ASML? And in more particular, how you served your business during that time?
Well, the first thing we needed to take care of course, is our people and employees. So to make sure that they stay safe. Also in a situation where we have more than 15,000 people working at the campus in Veldhoven, and we fly many people around the world. So that's something we had to take care of. At the same time, the second priority was, of course, looking at our customers. And I think the good thing for ASML is that customer demand is still strong. At the same time, we have a very complex supply that we needed to manage. And in many cases, we from ASML also had to support our suppliers to continue the supply during the pandemic. But at the other hand, also the installation of our machines, as I previously explained, has become very, very complex. And actually, by the use of augmented reality, by giving virtual reality trainings instead of classroom trainings, of course, many of the online Microsoft Teams meetings and workshops that we had, we managed to continue. And I think everybody in the company is I think pretty amazed and surprised how well it has been going so far.
And you mentioned that great example of using HoloLens and smartphones there to overcome some obstacles and challenges that you're experiencing. But do you have any other examples of how you're able to keep technology up and running when you couldn't actually be on site with your customers anymore?
Yeah, so apart from the earlier mentioned Microsoft Teams, virtual reality training, and augmented support, we are also using in our communications area things like podcasts and social media much more often than actually we did before, to really remain connected to our employees. So already very early in the stages of the pandemic, our senior leaders started to record movies also from their homes, and by that really also keeping our people motivated and making it a shared difficult situation which helped us also through the pandemic.
And 2020 has been a turbulent year for absolutely everyone. But what are the lessons that you think you've learned at ASML this year?
I think the flexibility of the people at ASML is enormous. It is something we already knew, but as you stated, when companies grow bigger, you sometimes also tend to be afraid that also even a company like ASML becomes slow and less agile. And during this crisis, we've seen that the innovative founders mentality, which is part of ASML's DNA, is still very, very, very much alive. And the way our people coped with that and tear down the silos of the different sectors to get ourselves actually even better out of the pandemic than we got in. I think that's truly amazing.
And after a few months of doom and gloom, I feel like we're all collectively picking ourselves up, dusting ourselves down and thinking, well, how can we do things differently now? How can we hit the ground running? So what excites you about the road ahead and the role that emerging technologies will play in our immediate future and, of course, beyond?
Yeah, so in customer support and ASML, one of the key goals that we've been focusing on in the past years is making the life of the engineers better. And we had already for many years a vision on how technology could help with that. But that has gone pretty slow. Also part of the restrictions for new technology in our customers' fab. Now, with many people opening their eyes about the possibilities of technologies, we do see many more opportunities to actually make sure that our very smart engineers can spend their time engineering instead of doing administration and reading through very complex work procedures before a service action. So we see the technological possibilities really as an enabler for making the life of the engineers better, but also more efficient. So we can reduce workmanship issues by augmented instructions. We don't need difficult and cumbersome time writing sheets anymore, because in the future we could use artificial intelligence and other kind of technologies for those kind of purposes. So there are so many ideas in the company on how to do this. It's now more a matter of prioritizing and funding.
Well, a huge thank you for taking the time to come on and share your journey over the last few months and how you've adapted at ASML. But for anyone listening that would like to find you online and equally contact your team if they've got any questions about our conversation today, what's the best way of doing that?
Yeah, the best way is, of course, go to the website, www.asml.com, where we have a story section where you can read a lot more about augmented reality, the augmented reality application. Furthermore, we also have an Instagram channel at ASML Company, where we have a special Ask ASML Stories section. And in that section, you hear from the different experts of the augmented reality team, and there's also the opportunity to ask questions to the team. And I think that's the best way to get in touch about this beautiful topic.
Well, I love how quick thinking you've been as a company there and leverage technology to maintain business continuity, and also how you guys at ASML are going to continue with these changes moving forward. So many big lessons, especially for other business leaders and tech teams listening all over the world. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to share that story with everyone today, Peter.
Well, you're very welcome. Thank you, Neil.
So if we zoom out here, ASML is a manufacturing company that makes large-scale machines responsible for creating those tiny microchips for all those major chip makers around the world. But keeping those machines up and running is a necessary part of the ecosystem. So if those machines break once they're in a customer's lab, then the products that we use every single day and take for granted, such as our cell phones and computers, they just simply won't get made. So for me, I loved hearing how some engineers at ASML partnered up with some of the US-based customers that piloted this AR-based solution to spot check machines and keep them running smoothly. and also using Microsoft HoloLens and smartphones to simulate those on-site visits too. So today's conversation felt like this incredible real-world example of how they were able to keep their technology up and running, even when they couldn't be on site with their customers. But I'm curious, do you have any similar stories to share or want to add anything to today's conversation? And remember, you can do that anytime by simply emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My social channels is just LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Look for Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk. If you would like to work with me, if you need any help with business blogs, thought leadership blogs for your CEO, or even launch your own podcast. But before you go, just a big warm thank you for all your kind words and messages over the last few days. You know who you are, and I do consider myself incredibly fortunate to serve you all each day with these 20, 30-minute episodes. So I will return to your earballs bright and early tomorrow and be the soundtrack for 20 minutes of your day. But a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.